Hello there and welcome to World News Program, streaming to you live on all 24 News. I'm your host, Kirifa Zachary, and up next are the top stories. In the past 24 hours, 4 Zionist massacres in Gaza resulted in 37 deaths and over 60 injuries. Zionist airstrikes caused more casualties in other parts of the Strip, and a new attack in Rafah was reported, despite increasing international warnings. In Noor Shams camp, there have been casualties, injuries, and significant damage to infrastructure. And 10 Zionist soldiers were injured in clashes with the resistance in the camp. That's next. Also coming up, Palestinian president criticizes the recent American veto as disappointing, shameful, irresponsible, and unjustified, and announces a reevaluation of bilateral relations with the United States. Erdogan, meanwhile, urges Palestinians to unite, and Barbados officially recognizes the state of Palestine. Also ahead, 1 person has died and 8 wounded in an explosion at the Qusayr military base in Iraq. The United States denies responsibility for the attack, while Iran rolls out in a response to the recent Zionist attack on a military base in the center of the country. Stay tuned, we've got all the details right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the program. First off in our news, Zionist forces committed 4 new massacres in different areas of the Gaza Strip, killing 37 Palestinians and injuring 68 others within just 24 hours. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza reported that during the ongoing Zionist aggression, now in its 197th day, the number of victims has risen to 34,039 martyrs, mostly women and children, with 67,901 injured. Tens of thousands remain missing, trapped under the rubble and on roads, with the occupation forces preventing ambulance and civil defense crews from reaching them. 9 Palestinians were killed in a Zionist raid in Rafah, south of the Gaza Strip, on Friday night. The death toll might increase due to the ongoing bombings by Zionist forces. There are growing international warnings of a possible Zionist invasion of the city. Here's Zahra Frijani with more.
A grieving mother kisses the forehead of her son, the first martyr, before bidding farewell to her second and third martyrs. 9 people, including 6 children and women from one family, were targeted by surprise airstrikes while sleeping in the Tel Sultan neighborhood in the city of Rafah, south of the Gaza Strip.
We were sitting next to the house and an Israeli officer called us and told us to evacuate the house within 15 minutes because they were going to bomb it. So we evacuated the house and they bombed it an hour later. We are civilians and have no ties to the factions.
The Brahmins and the Shaut neighborhoods were bombed by occupation aircrafts, deliberately targeting unarmed civilians, resulting in 1 Palestinian being killed and dozens injured, the majority of whom were children and women. They were quickly transported to hospitals to receive treatment.
Striking them with 2 rockets. Why? Why? What did these children do? What did they do? Is that what Netanyahu and Arabs want? Is that what they want? Are these the Zionists' targets? They were asleep, safe and sound. Allah is my Safis and the best deputy. 9 martyrs. All of them are women and children, as you can see.
In the destruction and rubble, Palestinians who lost their homes in the Zionist bombing are attempting to salvage what remains, collecting utensils and mattresses as they search for a safe place to shelter.
The neighborhood, the house and building were bombed. Even the cemetery was not spared from the bombing. This is Rafah, which they say is safe for the displaced to head to. I have no words.
Despite increasing UN and international warnings about the catastrophic humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip, the Zionist entity persists with its criminal plan. Occupation forces continue to launch relentless airstrikes on various areas in Rafah, preceding an expected invasion of the city, which is home to approximately 1.5 million displaced people.
In other news, 2 Palestinians were killed and several others were injured in a Zionist airstrikes on the El Fallujah area in Jabalia camp north of the Gaza Strip. Additionally, 3 Palestinians were killed and 30 others injured in a Zionist bombing targeting the north of Nusayrat camp in central Gaza. Meanwhile, Zionist artillery targeted southern areas of Gaza. Medical sources reported the death of a doctor and the injury of his son after their clinic was targeted by the occupation in Buraij camp in central Gaza. After the United States used its veto power over the Palestinian request for full membership in the UN, residents of the war-ravaged Gaza Strip expressed their disappointment. More with Osama Ayadi now.
In a meeting held on Thursday at the UN Security Council, the Palestinian request for full membership in the UN saw 12 votes in favor, 2 abstentions, and 1 vote against. For a council resolution to pass, it requires at least 9 votes in favor and no vetoes from the United States, Britain, France, Russia, or China. However, the United States exercised its veto power after the project received 12 votes in favor. Residents of the Gaza Strip expressed disappointment over the result, emphasizing that it would deny the Palestinian people the right to return to their homeland and live in peace.
الحل يكمن هنا في أن يعود الشعب الفلسطيني إلى أرضه إلى حقوقه.
The solution lies in return, the Palestinian people to their land and homeland. America, which claims to be a sponsor of peace, should agree to grant their rights to the Palestinian people, instead of completely siding with Israel. Instead of war and destruction, Israel will not experience calm if it doesn't give the Palestinian people their rights.
The voices of those accusing the United States of siding with Israel against the Palestinian people are multiplying.
The right of Palestine to become a state within the framework of the United Nations is a legitimate right. The US administration, by using its veto, is clearly showing that it adopts the Israeli narrative and doesn't want us to have a state and enjoy peace. They only speak of Israel's right to exist. The neighborhood, the house and building were bombed. Even the cemetery was not spared from the bombing. This is Rafah, which they say is safe for the displaced to head to. I have no words.
The Palestinian mission to the United Nations initially applied for a full UN member state status in 2011. The first attempt failed because it did not receive the minimum necessary support from 9 of the 15 members of the Security Council at that time.
The Gaza government's media office disputed the American narrative on the number of trucks entering the Strip daily, pointing out that 3,814 trucks entered at the beginning of this month, only half of what the U.S. claimed. They called on international organizations to push for the opening of the Rafah border crossing and to allow 1,000 trucks of aid daily to address the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza.
The U.S. Secretary of State and the Director of the U.S. Agency for Development claimed that the number of trucks entering the Gaza Strip reached 400 trucks per day, and this is not true. The U.S. President also claimed that 3,000 trucks entered the Gaza Strip in 2 weeks, and this is also not true, as what entered the Gaza Strip from the beginning of April until now is 3,814 trucks at a rate of 200 trucks per day.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas criticized the American veto in the UN Security Council against granting Palestine full membership in the United Nations, calling it disappointing, regrettable, shameful, irresponsible, and unjustified. Mr. Abbas described the veto as a blatant aggression against the rights of the Palestinian people and a challenge to the will of the international community. He announced that the Palestinian leadership will reconsider its bilateral relations with the United States.
The use of veto constitutes a blatant aggression against the rights, history, land, and sanctities of the Palestinian people, challenging the will of the international community. The United States has violated all international laws and reneged on all promises regarding the two-state solution and achieving peace in the region. While the world is united in upholding international law and standing by Palestinian rights, America continues to support the occupation, refusing to compel Israel to stop its genocidal war. The Palestinian leadership will consider bilateral relations with the United States to ensure the protection of our people's interests, cause, and rights.
A number of Palestinians were killed and injured, while dozens others arrested in the ongoing siege by the Zionist occupation forces on North Shams camp east of city of Tulkarem for the third consecutive day. Selma Nasib reports.
Another witness to the war of extermination and the systematic attacks of the Zionist occupier. Explosions, gunshots, ring out of smoke billows during a Zionist raid on North Shams camp near Tulkarem in occupied West Bank for the third consecutive day, where it said it killed 10 people and arrested 8 others.
I think this is the third day of the incursion into the North Shams camp and the town of Tulkarem in general. The scale of this attack could be equivalent to or even slightly greater than the 2002 raid. It seems that the Israelis are very interested in silencing Palestinian resistance in the West Bank, particularly in the camps in the northern West Bank.
Many Palestinians left their homes under the surveillance of Zionist soldiers amid intense gunfire and light bombs, coinciding with intense aircraft flying in the sky of the city of Tulkarem.
There is indeed a complete destruction of homes, businesses, the electricity network, sewers, the water network and infrastructure. The incursion is unprecedented, even in 2002 and during previous incursions. There are snipers on the roofs, death squads and special forces deployed. It is indeed a real war. Until now, no one knows what is happening in the camp.
In a picture that mimics the crimes of the occupier in the Gaza Strip, including killing, destruction, and siege, the Zionist occupation continues more and more and prevents the Palestinian civil defense medical teams from evacuating the wounded or martyrs from reaching them.
اللي صار معنا انه احنا متبلغين انه في عدة اصابات موجوده في المخيم من بدايه الاجتياح.
What happened was that we were informed that there were several casualties in the camp during the raid, but they prevented us from entering. We took the risk of going there to evacuate one of our colleagues injured in the leg and suffering from a compound fracture. We tried to get closer, but they stopped us, searched the ambulances and asked us to return.
وفتشونا ورفضوا انه احنا نتقدم ورجعونا.
Difficult conditions from the Palestinians inside the camp that has been under siege for 3 days without food or water. And despite repeated calls to stop the aggression, the occupation continues to usurp the land and kill Palestinians wherever they are, whether here in the West Bank or there in Gaza.
And on Saturday, the Zionist forces acknowledged that 10 soldiers, including 2 border guards, were injured in the resistance's response to the aggression against North Shams camp in Tulkarem, West Bank. Meanwhile, the Tulkarem Brigade, affiliated with Al-Quds Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad movement, announced on its ongoing resistance against the occupation forces, targeting them with bullets and explosive devices. In central Gaza Strip, the Palestinian resistance targeted a D9 military bulldozer with Al Yassin 105 shell. Footage from Al Qassam Brigade showed the operation taking place last Wednesday. The Palestinian resistance also launched a missile barrage at Zionist settlements and military concentrations. Al Quds Brigades later published scenes of the preparation and launching of a missile salvo. Later, Al-Quds Brigades reported the bombing of a gathering of Zionist soldiers and vehicles in the Nazarene Advance Axis south of Gaza with a barrage of heavy caliber mortar shells. The U.S. House of Representatives approved new military aid to the Zionist occupation, totaling billions of dollars, despite international concerns about the fate of civilians in Gaza. A majority of both Democratic and Republican parties in the U.S. House of Representatives voted in favor of a bill allocating additional funds to the entity as part of a package totaling $95 billion allocated as aid to major allies of Washington worldwide. The funds are specifically aimed at strengthening Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile shield, with U.S. President Joe Biden urging the Senate to approve it as soon as possible. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called on the Palestinians to unite against the Zionist entity. This came at the conclusion of his meeting with the head of the political bureau of the Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement, Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, in Istanbul. Turkish media reported that the meeting lasted more than 2.5 hours and was attended by the head of the Islamic Resistance Movement abroad, Khalid Mish'al, according to photos published by the Turkish presidency.
It is vital that the Palestinians move united in this process. The strongest response to Israel and the path to victory require unity and integrity. Turkey continues its diplomatic efforts to draw the attention of the international community to the injustice to which the Palestinians are exposed, and stresses at every opportunity that the need for an urgent and permanent halt to the firing fire and to end atrocities.
Barbados has officially recognized the state of Palestine, becoming the 11th country in the Caribbean community, CARICOM, to do so. Barbados Minister of Foreign Affairs Kerry Simons confirmed the decision in a post on the X platform on Friday, stating that recognition is crucial to achieving a two-state solution. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry welcomed Barbados's decision, stating that it reflects the Republic's commitment to supporting the Palestinian people and their legitimate rights. The Libyan Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed deep regret over the UN Security Council's failure to approve the draft resolution accepting Palestine as a full UN member due to the American veto. In a statement on Saturday, they urged countries to uphold humanitarian values and international law. Tunisia renewed its call for the international community to redouble efforts to approve full UN membership for the state of Palestine. President Kais Saied reiterated Tunisia's firm stance on the Palestinian issue, linking the liberation of Palestine to the liberation of Arab thought during his speech at the Tunis International Book Fair.
A lot of them have exited the prisons with dignity, despite the fact that they were sometimes in solitary confinement. They are still insisting on fighting again, even if they had spent decades in the prisons of the occupation. The Arab mind has to be freed too. Even humanity has started to be free from the old beliefs. Palestine will surely be free, and all the people of the world will be free.
And finally, on this file, on Saturday, cities worldwide saw massive demonstrations condemning the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip. Thousands took part in demonstrations in Copenhagen, Aarhus, Geneva, Milan and Stuttgart. Berlin and London also supported the Palestinian people, demanding a ceasefire and the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. In New York City, the police arrested 108 students, including the daughter of Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar, for organizing, a demonstration at Columbia University. The university the university administration suspended her and 2 other students from studying and participating in university activities due to their involvement in the protests.
Our protest today is an expression, our comprehensive and complete stance that starts with mobilization and protests, and then with launching missiles and drones. Our protest today is a response to the call from God to support our brothers in Palestine.
In other news, but still in the Middle East, Iraq announced the killing of a soldier from the Popular Mobilization Forces and the injury of 8 people, one of them affiliated with the army, in an explosion and fire inside Kalso camp north of Bab el Governorate on the international line of South Baghdad. The security media cell of the office of the Iraqi Prime Minister confirmed that there was no drone or fighter aircraft in the airspace before and during the explosion. The U.S. military command in the Middle East, CENTCOM, stated that the United States did not carry out strikes in Iraq on Friday and considered the information claiming that the United States carried out airstrikes in Iraq as false. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian downplayed the impact of the Zionist attack on central Iran on Friday. He described the attack as children's play in an interview with NBC, emphasizing that Iran will not retaliate unless its interests are targeted. On Friday, Iranian official media reported explosions near a military base in Esfahan province after the Iranian air defense system intercepted several drones.
What happened last night was not a strike. They were more like toys that our children play with, not drones. As long as there is no new adventurism by Israel against our interests, then we are not going to have any new reactions.
It was not worth telling us.
The permanent office of the Secretariat of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Sagi al-Hamra and Wad al-Dahab renewed gratitude to Algeria, led by President Abdelmajid Tebboune, for its continued support of the Sahrawi people against Moroccan expansionist aggression. In a statement on Friday, the office expressed pride in the strong strategic alliance between the Sahrawi and Algerian peoples, noting the complete alignment of viewpoints on regional issues of common concern. In economy, Algeria's economic showed remarkable resilience despite inflationary pressures, leading to an increase in growth forecast by the IMF for both the current and upcoming years. The country's strong financial security, marked by absence of debt and increased foreign cash inflows, has resulted in Algeria topping the list of African countries with the highest foreign exchange reserves. This positive outlook has prompted the IMF to adjust its view of Algeria's economy, reflecting optimism and positivity. And finally, other news in brief with Sofian Kenturi.
Moroccan Minister of Economy and Finance Nadia Fattah Halawi acknowledged the decline in Morocco's growth forecasts for the current year compared to last year, justifying this with a drought wave that significantly affected the agricultural sector. In a related matter, the IMF and the World Bank lowered their growth forecasts for Morocco due to the widening circle of the country's economic crisis. The foreign ministers of the group of 7 countries warned that the political stalemate will make Libya vulnerable to actors belonging to unnamed third countries, seeking to control the security, politics, and economy of Libya. The United States agreed on Friday to withdraw its more than 1,000 troops from Niger, at a request of the Military Council in Niamey. France press agencies citing U.S. officials reported that U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell agreed to the request of Niamey authorities to withdraw his country's troops during a meeting in Washington with the Prime Minister of Niger. Sudan's representative to the United Nations, Idris Harith, announced his country's refusal to participate in any settlement to resolve the Sudanese crisis. The representative of Sudan, in a speech delivered during the Security Council session on the situation in Sudan, accused UAE of igniting the war in his country by supporting the Rapid Support Forces.
Well, the end of our program. Thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.